One choice stood between Eli's safety and his heart, to stay where life was certain or to follow the one who made him feel truly seen. The morning air still carried the hush of dawn when Father announced we'd be going to the county fair. His words drifted through the kitchen like dust motes dancing in the sunlight. I kept my gaze fixed on my bowl of oatmeal, afraid my face might reveal the quickening of my heart. Eli will come with us, he said, nodding toward me. It's time he saw more than the fields. Samuel glanced my way, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. At 22, I was 2 years younger, yet had traveled far less. While he joined Father on trips into town, I stayed behind, feeding livestock, tending rows of corn, keeping pace with the rhythm that had shaped my life since birth. "Donna, Father," I murmured softly, the blend of Pennsylvania Dutch and English natural on my tongue. That night, I lay awake, staring at the moonlit ceiling. The county fair was something I'd only heard in pieces. The noise, the crowds, the English with their strange clothes and stranger ways. We were taught to avoid such gatherings, to find peace in simplicity. Yet beneath my blanket, curiosity flickered like a small flame refusing to die. By morning, the fair stretched across the valley like a kingdom of color. From the back of our buggy, I watched it appear, striped tents, fluttering banners, and strings of lights waiting to glow like fallen stars. My palms grew damp against my black trousers. "Stay close to the family," Father reminded me as the horse slowed near the entrance. His tone was calm but firm. "We're here to sell, not to be taken in by worldly things." I nodded, helping Mother unload her quilts and jars of preserves. The fair was one of the few times our community met the outside world, exchanging craft for the money that sustained our simple lives. "You may walk around once we're settled," Mother said gently, "but be back before midday." Even that small freedom felt foreign. I wandered through the fairgrounds like a ghost, present yet apart. My plain clothes marked me instantly among the denim and bright colors. Some stared, others nodded politely. Most just moved around me like water around a stone. The quilting pavilion felt safe, patterns familiar to my mother's work, stitched by hands that spoke the same quiet language. But then came the music, drifting through the air like dandelion seeds, light and wistful, not the solemn hymns of Sunday. It drew me forward until I reached a painted carousel, spinning with laughter and brass and sunlight. And that's when I saw him. He stood beneath a canopy of unlit string lights, surrounded by canvases alive with color and movement. My breath caught. He was tall, with dark hair tied loosely at his neck, hands stained with paint, and a smile warm as summer. I didn't realize I'd stopped walking until someone brushed past me. "You like art?" he called out. I froze. He was looking right at me now, head tilted in curiosity. Heat rose to my face. Words failed me. I knew little of art beyond the careful crafts of our people, where beauty served purpose. Yet something in my silence seemed to intrigue him. He wiped his hands on a stained cloth and gestured. "Come closer. I don't bite." My feet moved before I could think. Up close, the paintings felt alive. Landscapes that breathed, portraits with eyes that followed, shapes that spoke emotions I had no words for. "I'm Jack," he said, offering a paint-streaked hand. "Eli," I replied quietly, taking it. His skin was warm, his grip gentle. "Eli," he repeated, like tasting the sound. "Strong name, biblical." "It means ascended," I said, surprised he knew. He smiled, the small gap in his teeth making him somehow more human. "Well, Eli the Ascended, what brings you to my humble gallery?" There was no mockery, only genuine warmth that tightened something in my chest. "I've never seen paintings like these," I admitted, nodding toward a canvas that captured the glow of sunset and the ache of endings. "That's the nicest thing I've heard all day," he said, his eyes crinkling. "Most people just ask the price." A young couple approached, and he motioned for me to wait. I watched him speak with them, hands moving expressively, voice full of passion as he described light and shadow. I should have gone back to my family, but I didn't. I stayed studying not just the art, but the artist himself, the way sunlight touched his hair, the ease in his voice, the life in his eyes. When the couple left, Jack turned to me again. "You're Amish, right?" "Yes," I said, resisting the urge to adjust my hat. "I've always admired the Amish way," he said. "Everything done with care, nothing wasted. There's honesty in that." His words struck deeper than I expected. I felt myself leaning toward him, drawn by something unspoken. "Would you let me draw you?" he asked suddenly. "Draw me?" I echoed. He nodded, already reaching for his sketchbook. "Your face, strong lines, thoughtful eyes, the kind artists dream about. 10 minutes, that's all." Every lesson I'd ever learned warned against vanity, against being seen, and yet I sat. "I shouldn't," I whispered. "Sometimes," Jack said softly, "the things we shouldn't do are what help us understand who we are." He lifted his charcoal, eyes focused on me. "Look slightly to your left," he murmured, "and try to relax." "Breathe," he said softly. I did as he asked, fixing my gaze on a distant food stand, acutely aware of his eyes tracing the lines of my face. The gentle scratch of charcoal filled the space between us, a rhythm steady as my heart was not. Occasionally he murmured something too quiet to catch. "What made you become an artist?" I asked, desperate to fill the silence with anything other than the sound of my own pulse. Jack's hand kept moving. "I didn't become one," he said. "I always was. It just took me a while to admit it." He glanced up briefly, eyes sharp with focus. "Hold still. Sorry. Don't apologize." His mouth curved into a small smile. "Being still doesn't come easy for most people. We're taught to always move, always do, always prove." The thought made me smile faintly. It was ironic hearing that from someone English. They were the ones chasing progress and noise, while we Amish cherished quiet and simplicity. "In your world, maybe," I said softly. He chuckled. "Fair point. But I think it's true for everyone. We're all torn between the need to move and the longing to be still." His gaze met mine, steady and thoughtful. "The trick," he added, "is learning the balance." Something in those words lodged deep inside me. I'd lived a life of stillness, of patterns unbroken for generations. Yet a restlessness had always burned beneath the calm, an ache to know what lay beyond our fields. "Almost done," Jack murmured. "You're a natural. Most people can't stop fidgeting or pretending to pose. We're taught that vanity's a sin," I explained quietly. "To draw attention to oneself is to invite pride." "There's a difference," he said gently, "between vanity and recognizing beauty when it exists. The sunset isn't vain for being beautiful. Neither is a well-made chair, or a perfect apple, or a man with paint-stained hands and eyes like autumn," I thought before I could stop myself. The thought startled me, and I shifted uneasily on the stool. "There," Jack said suddenly, setting the charcoal aside. "Would you like to see?" I hesitated, then rose and stepped behind him. When he turned the sketchbook around, the breath caught in my throat. The face on the paper was mine, yet not. He'd captured something beyond likeness, a quiet strength, a trace of yearning, something I'd never seen reflected in still water or a window pane. "Is that really how I look?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "It's how I see you," Jack said simply. He tore the page free and handed it to me. "Here, a gift." Our fingers brushed as I took it, and a small current passed between us, soft as a whisper, undeniable as breath. I pulled back quickly, clutching the drawing to my chest. "Thank you," I managed, voice unsteady. He looked like he wanted to say more, but a woman's voice cut through the moment. "Jack, there you are! I've been looking everywhere!" A young woman approached carrying a tray with 2 paper cups. Her hair was short, her ears lined with silver. She glanced at me, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Making friends?" she asked lightly, handing him a cup. "Mia, this is Eli," Jack said. "Eli, my friend Mia, she's helping me with sales." "Nice to meet you," she said kindly, though her tone held polite wonder. She turned to Jack. "The jewelry vendor wants to trade one of your small landscapes for a pendant." Jack sighed. "Tell her I'll stop by later." He glanced at me with a faint smile. "Duty calls." I nodded, sensing it was time to go. "I should get back to my family." I carefully rolled the drawing and tucked it into my vest. "Thank you again." "Wait." Jack reached for a small card and scribbled something on the back before handing it to me. "I'm here all week, if you come back." I took the card without looking at it and walked away, heart racing like a trapped bird. The sounds of the fair, laughter, music, the shouts of vendors blurred into a distant hum. All I could hear was his voice. All I could feel was the memory of his touch. When I returned, Father was clearly relieved, though he said nothing. I resumed my place behind the preserves, arranging jars in perfect rows. "Did you see much?" Mother asked gently as she folded a quilt. "Some," I said. "The quilting pavilion." "The carousel," she nodded, satisfied. If only she knew. All afternoon I felt the drawing against my chest, a secret burning warm against my skin. Twice I checked for the card, still unread. By evening, the fair began to shimmer under electric lights. As we packed the buggy, I glanced toward Jack's tent, now glowing softly beneath the string lights. His figure moved within, easy and unhurried. "Eli," Samuel called. "The preserves," I turned away quickly. Something had shifted inside me, a door opened that could not be closed. Later that night, in the quiet of the barn, I finally pulled the card from my pocket. One side bore his name and number, useless to me without a phone. But on the back, written in his looping hand, were words that made my heart stutter. "Meet me behind the livestock barn tomorrow at sunset. I have more to show you." I traced the letters again and again until they blurred. I should burn the card. Forget the day. Follow the path laid out for me. Marriage, family, the same soil beneath my feet. Instead, I slipped it into a small crevice in the barn wall, a hiding place for secrets I'd never spoken. That night, sleep would not come. My thoughts spun with hazel eyes and paint-stained hands. The next day dragged like a prayer said too slowly. As the sun sank, I heard my own voice asking Father, "May I walk the fairgrounds again?" "Be back before dark," he said, without looking up. The livestock barn stood on the far edge of the fair. I found him there, perched on a hay bale, sketchbook in hand. When he saw me, a smile broke across his face and something inside me twisted. "You came," he said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I shouldn't be here," I whispered. "Probably not," he agreed softly. "But I'm glad you are." He motioned for me to sit, and though I hesitated, I joined him, careful to leave space between us. "I looked at your drawing again last night," I said quietly. "You're very talented," Jack smiled. "Thank you. I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. Drove my parents mad, every surface became a canvas." I smiled at the image. "Were they artists too?" He shook his head. "No, my dad's an accountant. Mom teaches second grade. Two practical people who somehow ended up with a dreamer." "What about yours?" he asked. "They're like their parents before them." "Father farms. Mother makes quilts. It's our way. And you'll do the same?" I nodded, though something inside me ached at the truth of it. "Have you ever wanted something else?" he asked gently. The question startled me. Among my people, curiosity like that could stir discontent. "It's not about what I want," I said. "It's about what's right. And who decides what's right?" "God," I replied automatically, "as understood through our elders." "And if what you feel in your heart doesn't match what they say?" I stared down at my hands. "Then my heart is wrong," Jack sighed, a sound both soft and heavy. "That's a hard burden to carry, Eli." I looked up. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't name. Sorrow, warmth, maybe both. "What about you?" I asked. "Is this your life?" "Traveling painting fairs?" "Part of it," he said. "I have a small studio in Philadelphia. I teach, sell when I can. The fairs keep me grounded and remind me how big the world really is." "Philadelphia," I repeated. The word felt foreign, too bright. "What's it like?" "Loud," he said. "Fast, sometimes lonely, but also alive. It's a place where you can start over, where you can become who you really are." "And who are you?" I asked before I could stop myself. He met my gaze and held it. "Still figuring that out. But I know this. I see beauty where others might not. And I can't look away when it's right in front of me." He reached out, and I froze as his fingers brushed my hair aside, tucking it gently behind my ear. His touch was barely there, but it sent my pulse racing. No one had ever looked at me like that, like I was something rare. I should have moved. Instead, I sat frozen in that fragile space between fear and longing. "You're trembling," Jack whispered. "I'm afraid," I admitted. "Of me?" I shook my head. "Of this. Of what I'm feeling." He exhaled slowly, eyes soft. Eli, voices interrupted. "Workers coming for hay. We should go," I said quickly, standing. Jack rose too. "Come see the fair at night," he said. "The Ferris wheel at dusk." "There's nothing like it." I hesitated, torn between duty and something deeper. "Where?" Meet me at the base of the wheel. 8 o'clock. I nodded once and walked away, his gaze following me until I disappeared around the corner. That night, I told my parents I wanted to see how the English celebrated after dark. Father frowned, but Mother smiled softly. Let the boy see a little of the world, she said. If only she knew how much of my world had already shifted. The fair at night was magic and temptation intertwined. Colored lights danced over faces, music tangled with laughter. The smell of sugar and smoke filled the air, and there, beneath the glow of the Ferris wheel, stood Jack, hands in his pockets, hair loose around his shoulders. When he saw me, his smile made my steps falter. You made it, he said. I shouldn't stay long, I murmured. One ride, he promised. Then I'll let you go if that's what you want. If that's what you want. The words echoed as we stepped into the car. The metal bar lowered, our shoulders brushed, and the wheel began to turn, lifting us into a world of light and air and dizzying freedom. Breathe, he whispered again. I did. The fair spread below like a tapestry of color and sound. For the first time, I saw the world not as something forbidden, but as something waiting. It's beautiful, I breathed. Jack smiled. That's what I try to paint, not just how things look, but how they feel. As the wheel carried us higher, my heart felt weightless. Can I ask you something? He said softly. I nodded. Have you ever been in love? The question hit like a jolt. No, I said truthfully. Love comes after baptism, after marriage. It's not the point. It's about duty, he said quietly. Not desire, I nodded. He looked out over the lights, then back at me. You're not wrong. Love can be uncertain. But when it's real, when it finds you, it changes everything. Have you? I asked. Been in love? A faint, wistful smile touched his lips. Once, he said softly. It ended badly. I'm sorry, I whispered. The morning air still carried the hush of dawn when Father announced we'd be going to the county fair. His words hung in the kitchen like dust motes drifting through the slanted light. I kept my eyes on my bowl of oatmeal, afraid the sudden rush in my chest might show on my face. Eli will come with us, he said, nodding toward me. It's time he saw more than our fields. Samuel looked over, a hint of a smile ghosting across his lips. At 22, he was 2 years older and far more traveled, joining Father for town errands while I stayed behind tending livestock and the endless rows of corn. Donna, Father, I murmured, the familiar mix of Pennsylvania Dutch and English soft on my tongue. That night, I lay awake beneath a quilt stitched by Mother's hands, watching moonlight trace quiet shapes across the ceiling. The fair was a mystery I'd only heard in fragments, noise and color, the English in strange clothes, laughter spilling like music. We were taught to avoid such things, to find peace in stillness, yet somewhere deep within me curiosity flickered. By morning, the fair spread across the valley like a painted dream. From the back of our buggy, I watched it unfold, a riot of color against muted fields. Red and white tents, yellow banners snapping in the wind, strings of lights that would glow like fallen stars by nightfall. My palms were damp against the coarse fabric of my trousers. Stay close to the family, Father said as we slowed by the entrance. We are here to sell, not to be taken in by worldly things. I nodded and helped Mother unload her quilts and jars of raspberry jam. The fair was one of the few times our world touched theirs, our craft for their coins. Mother's jam and quilts were our offering. You may walk about once we're settled, she said softly, and the unexpected permission felt like freedom on my tongue. I wandered through the fair like a ghost, present yet apart. My plain clothes marked me instantly. Some stared. Others nodded. Most simply passed me by. I lingered in the quilting pavilion, where patterns like Mother's hung beside the elaborate English ones, each stitch a story. But it was the music that drew me further. Notes drifted on the breeze, light, wistful, alive. I followed them toward a carousel where laughter rose and fell with the painted horses. That's when I saw him. Beneath a canopy of swaying string lights stood an artist surrounded by canvases bursting with color. But it was he, not the art, that rooted me to the earth. Dark hair tied loosely at his neck, hands stained in every shade of the rainbow, and a smile like sunlight breaking through clouds. You like art? His voice cut through my trance. I looked down, flustered, suddenly aware of my plain boots, my plain everything. Words slipped away. "Come closer," he said, wiping his hands on a paint-streaked cloth. I stepped forward, drawn as if by gravity. Up close, his paintings breathed. Fields that glowed, eyes that followed, colors that moved like wind. "I'm Jack," he said, extending a hand streaked with blue. "Eli," I answered, shaking it. His grip was warm, his voice easy. "Biblical," he said with a grin. "It means ascended, doesn't it?" I nodded. "Well, Eli the Ascended," he laughed. "What brings you to my little corner of chaos?" There was no mockery, only warmth and something playful that quickened my pulse. "I've never seen anything like these," I said quietly, gesturing to a canvas of sunset light. "That's the nicest thing I've heard all day," he replied, eyes crinkling. "Most people just ask how much." He turned to a young couple, his hands moving as he spoke, painting stories in the air. I should have gone back to my family's booth, but I stayed, watching the sunlight in his hair, the easy rhythm of his voice. When the couple left, he looked at me again. "You're Amish, right?" "Yes. I've always admired your craft," he said. "Everything made with care, no waste. Just meaning." The sincerity in his tone disarmed me. Then, with no warning, he asked, "Would you let me draw you?" "Draw me?" I repeated, startled. He was already reaching for his sketchbook. "Your face, strong lines, thoughtful eyes. 10 minutes, that's all." Every teaching I'd been raised with warned against vanity, yet somehow my feet carried me toward the stool. "I shouldn't," I whispered. "Sometimes the things we shouldn't do," he said softly, "are the ones that show us who we are." He lifted the charcoal. "Now, look slightly to your left." Jack's confession lingered in the air between us, soft but weighted. "In the art world," he said, "I'm too traditional for the avant-garde, too experimental for the classics. I never quite belong." His words cracked something open in my understanding of him. The confident man before me, the one who painted light like it was breathing, was also searching for a place to fit. "How do you bear it?" I asked quietly. "The uncertainty." He thought for a long moment before answering. "I remind myself it's better to live honestly, even if it means standing apart, than to force myself into a shape that kills my spirit." Then his gaze met mine, steady, unflinching. "The hardest part isn't what others say, Eli. It's the voice inside that whispers you're wrong for wanting something different." His truth echoed through me. It was the very struggle I'd carried in silence for as long as I could remember. We walked until we reached the far end of the fair, where Jack delivered a painting to an older woman who smiled through tears. When he turned back to me, he gestured toward a quiet patch behind the craft pavilion. "Can we talk a moment?" I hesitated, aware of my family waiting, of time slipping, but followed him anyway. "I know this isn't simple," he said, voice low. "I know the life you come from, the weight of what's expected." He took a breath. "But I can't stop thinking about you. About this morning." The honesty in his tone stole my breath. "I can't either," I admitted. "But Jack, I don't see how." "I live 2 hours from here," he said quickly, eyes bright with hope. "Above my studio. There's a bus that passes near your farm. Once a week." His meaning hit me all at once. "Are you asking me to visit you?" He nodded. "Just to visit. To see something different for a little while. No pressure, no promises, just time." He reached for my hand, holding it gently between his paint-stained fingers. My mind spun with impossible questions. How I'd explain my absence. How I'd even find my way in his world. But beneath it all was something deeper. The feeling of a door opening, of air rushing into a room I hadn't known was locked. "I don't know," I said softly. "You'll leave. I'll go back to my life." "It doesn't have to end," he whispered. "Unless you want it to. Did I?" The question burned inside me. This man had seen me, truly seen me, in a way no one else ever had. "I need time," I finally said. "To think. To understand what I'm feeling." He nodded, trying to mask the sadness in his eyes. "Of course!" He squeezed my hand once before letting go. "I should get back to my tent." "Last day sales are good?" I nodded too, caught between relief and regret. We walked back in silence, and when our paths split, he stopped. "Eli," he said quietly, "meeting you has been like discovering a color I didn't know existed. A new note in a song I've been playing my whole life. The words hit something deep inside me. For me too, I managed. He smiled, soft and sad. Come find me before you leave. To say goodbye. I will. The rest of the day dragged like a slow tide. I helped customers, smiled, counted coins, but my thoughts stayed with him. When Father finally said it was time to pack, panic flared in me. May I walk the fair once more? I asked. To say farewell to a friend. Father looked surprised, but nodded. Be quick. We leave before dark. I found Jack's tent half taken down, canvases stacked neatly in crates. Relief washed over his face when he saw me. I was afraid you wouldn't come, he said. I said I would, I replied. He looked around, then motioned me behind the tent. Can we? We stepped into the quiet, just us and the fading hum of the fair. I don't want to say goodbye, he said softly. Neither do I whispered. But I don't see another way. Jack drew a steadying breath. Then at least take this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn sketchbook. It's my travel one, nearly full, but there's a clean page at the back. My address, my phone number. If you ever want to see beyond what you know, find me, I stared at the offering. Jack, I can't. You can, he said gently, pressing it into my hands. Just keep it. Look through it when you're alone. Remember this. The finality in his voice made my chest tighten, and before I could stop myself, I leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, trembling, full of everything words couldn't carry. When I stepped back, his eyes were wide with surprise and something warmer. I have to go, I said. My family's waiting. He nodded, voice barely a whisper. Goodbye, Eli. Whatever you choose, know that meeting you changed me. I clutched the sketchbook to my chest and walked away, each step a fight not to turn back. The journey home was silent but heavy, the rhythmic clip of the horse's hooves marking time. The sketchbook stayed hidden under my vest. When we reached the farm, moonlight stretched silver across familiar fields. After unloading, I slipped to the barn under the pretense of checking a calf. In the quiet, hay-scented dark, I opened the book. Page after page unfolded his world, city streets, portraits of strangers, skies that breathed color, and at the back, in his looping hand, I traced the words with my fingertip, feeling the faint grooves in the paper. Stay in the only world I'd ever known. Or step into his sleep never came. By dawn, I was already outside, drawn to the fence at the edge of our land, the same meadow where we'd sat together. The morning sun rose warm and bright, the world newly washed. I opened the sketchbook again. Find me, Eli, behind me lay safety. Before me, an open sky. I closed the book, pressing it to my heart as the day began, the weight of choice both terrifying and alive.